Do you ever feel like you're getting old? Like how one of your favorite brands of mac and cheese changed their recipe and they haven't tasted as good since? Anyway, my name is John, and for the past few months I've been watching through every episode of this third generation of My Little Pony, consisting of about 12 straight-to-DVD specials, a live theatrical production, and many different shorts of various lengths. Watching through this series was a lot of fun, and I feel like I've gained a new perspective and respect for this toy line. But now it's time to rank and review this series from the bottom to the top. The bottoms being my least favorite, and the tops being my favorite. In order to give each episode a fair deal, I made sure to watch them at least twice. But before we begin this ranking, let's talk about how this generation differs from the others. Here's a bit of history. When we last left off, it was 1992, and Generation 1 had ended with My Little Ponytails, which was a 90s teen slice-of-life sitcom where the ponies essentially go to school and live like humans. There we followed a core group of 7 preteen ponies with distinct character quirks, instead of the timeless fantasy adventure of the previous series, which did not have a core group, but a large rotating catalog of ponies. The targeted audience for both of these shows were generally 5 to 12 years of age. The next decade saw a serious drought of pony content, as Generation 2 did not have any animated media. But in 2003, Generation 3 began and saw the return of the pony media. However, instead of a new TV show, we would get straight-to-DVD specials that were released alongside different toy lines. Because these specials would only happen once or twice a year, the animation would slightly change, and the writing choices would switch priorities. Most of this generation would be written by Gian Romano, who we don't really know a whole lot about. And the targeted audience would be the youngest out of all the generations at about 3 to 7 years. The world of G3 would return to some of its fantasy roots, but would mostly follow slice-of-life storytelling. And like the first generation, we would follow a rotating catalog of ponies. However, characters like Minty, Pinkie Pie, Rainbow Dash, and Wisteria would make consistent appearances. Much of the voice cast from My Little Ponytails and the later Generation 4 would voice the characters of this generation. Then, in 2008, a slight reboot would reduce the cast of ponies to just a core 7. These ponies being Pinkie Pie, Rainbow Dash, Scootaloo, Cheerilee, Sweetie Belle, Tularula, and Star Song. The brand would be rebooted again in 2009 with an updated art direction for the core 7. This change was called Generation 3.5. And the brand would be rebooted one last time with the newborn cuties and yet another animation update, this time using flash animation. And this would be the last piece of pony media before the 4th generation. On this ranking, I'll be reviewing things on how they connect to me. Quality, rewatchability, and intrigue are typically the key factors that determine what makes a standout episode to me. Please keep in mind that people have different worldviews, interests, and experiences, so what I may like or dislike might be the complete opposite of yours. But don't let that bum you out, because in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. With that said, let's get started with the ranking. At number 22, we have So Many Ways to Play. So Pinkie Pie recounts the story of how she met Scootaloo. This short is part of the Newborn Cuties toy line, which was the final piece of Generation 3 media. And what is immediately apparent is that we have yet another updated art style for this generation. And it is not the best looking out of all the updates. In fact, this new update looks pretty nightmarish. And it doesn't help that the animation is cheap compared to what came before. We even have weird sound design, as these butterflies are chirping like birds. So the story begins with Pinkie Pie having a tea party with herself, waiting for her friends to show up, and they do. Cheerilee shows up, and she brings her younger sister, which in this generation is Scootaloo. So Pinkie Pie invites Scootaloo to join her tea party, and Scootaloo jumps around in excitement, running around the house, like playing in different ways. Like this bit speaks for itself.
Party? Party, 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 party! Party, 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 party!
And it goes on forever, for a really long time. And then when Pinkie Pie is like, hey, let's do something, Scootaloo just suddenly doesn't want to join for some reason. Then she goes to play outside with the butterflies, and Pinkie says something about the moral being about playing together is better than playing alone, which is completely irrelevant to everything that we saw, because we never really saw them playing together. It just doesn't work. This was definitely the low point of the entire generation, honestly, of all of My Little Pony. In the end, this was an unceremonious finale that marked the end of this generation. At number 21, we have Over Two Rainbows. So Pinkie Pie recounts the story of how Sweetie Belle showed up. Just like the previous one, this was part of the Newborn Cuties toy line, but this was the first of the two shorts. And just like the other one, you can see the updated art style, the cheap animation. The voice work is completely different from everything that we have seen before. And then this Rainbow Dash has a fashion show, but then it rains and she loses her scarf from the mud. And after the rain, we get to see this double rainbow, and the rainbow connects. And apparently that means we have a dimensional rift that happens. And if the rift happens, suddenly a baby unicorn shows up, and that's how Sweetie Belle happens. The most insane part of this generation is that we randomly get this piece of lore that unicorn babies come from rainbows. It's never brought up before, it's never brought up again, and it's just kind of like a normal thing that happens. But Rainbow Dash is very apathetic and salty towards Sweetie Belle for taking her attention and for ruining her scarf. But when Sweetie Belle cleans the scarf, Dash just accepts her, and they give her the name of Sweetie Belle. And then they do a fashion show. This whole episode was just weird. It takes a risk, but it is still really weird that it happened. In the end, this was a downgrade from everything prior that took an odd direction. At number 20, we have Pinkie Pie's Special Day. So the girls prepare a special day to celebrate Pinkie Pie. And they do this by presenting a holographic rainbow clip show of her best moments. So this is essentially kind of like a recap episode, where all we're doing is seeing Pinkie Pie's best moments from all the previous specials, with very little new elements added. And at the end, Pinkie Pie gets a brand new outfit. You know, I wish my friends would celebrate me on a random day. It's not even my birthday or her birthday. It's just like they choose a day for Pinkie Pie and be like, hey Pinkie, let's celebrate. And they do home invasion. I would love that. Minus the home invasion. In the end, this was a filler episode. At number 19, we have Rainbow Dash's Special Day. Just like the last one, the girls prepare a special day to celebrate Rainbow Dash. Except the twist on this one is that they actually forgot to prepare, and so they quickly have to scrap everything together. We still get the holographic rainbow that shows Rainbow Dash's best moments. So it's essentially the same one, but there's a little more work done to this one. Because when Generation 3 rebooted to the Core 7, they recasted the voice actor for Rainbow Dash. And so when they had to do these best moments for the previous episodes with the other voice actor, they decided to dub over the old lines with this new voice, which is, you know, kind of weird and jarring to see that happen, because the two voices are nothing alike, and they're kind of written different as well.
Too pink?
Oh, darling, you can never have too much of something you love. And you love pink. Lots and lots of pink. I might have added a few other colors just to make it more of a rainbow, but as pink goes, this is fabulous, darling.
Oh, Pinkie, you can never have too much of something you love. And you love pink. Lots and lots of pink. I might have added a few other colors just to make it more of a rainbow, but as pink goes, this is fabuloso!
And just like Pinkie Pie, Rainbow Dash gets a brand new outfit. In the end, this was another filler episode that attempted to retcon the past. At number 18, we have Star Song and the Magic Dance Shoes. So Pinkie Pie loses some dancing shoes, and Star Song helps to find them. A thing to note about this episode is that for some reason, Pinkie Pie has a weird, high-pitched voice. This is not something that's done for any other episode, it's just this one short that this happens. I don't know if it's because she's meant to be younger here, it's never really specified, but it's just a weird, higher-pitched version of her normal voice. So they couldn't find the dance shoes, so they tried dancing without them. It doesn't work, it doesn't feel comfortable, and it turns out that the shoes were under the bed, and they were dancing on their own, so the shoes have sentience. And so the girls, they find them, and then they dance, not really questioning anything, and then they address the audience, and they tell us to dance, which, you know, is very uncomfortable. The thing about this generation is that every time the ponies look at the camera, it is very nightmare-inducing. In the end, this was an odd short that had some charm. At number 17, we have Sweetie Belle's Gumball House Surprise. So Sweetie Belle leaves a clue hunt for the girls to solve. So this is another 5-minute short that's not going to have a very complex story. But it does have a lot of fun smaller moments, because here we learn that Scootaloo is actually a pretty good knocker. The clues that are left behind are pretty simple and easy to solve in some cases, and each clue leads them around the property. Then you have this moment at the seesaw where Scootaloo is just sitting on a clue, not really noticing or realizes that she's sitting on it. After solving all the clues, they find that Sweetie Belle is just sitting in the backyard waiting for them with cupcakes, which is a pretty risky way to end your clue hunts, because they could have just accidentally found her by going to the backyard while looking. In the end, this was a fun little time with some memeable moments. At number 16, we have Waiting for the Winter Wishes Festival. So while waiting for the festival, the girls do a plethora of activities to pass the time. So the short starts with Scootaloo being impatient, wanting the festival to happen. So the girls decide to do a tradition where they sing a song to pass the time. And the song is a 12 Days of Christmas homage. And in that they do a bunch of stuff, different activities. Each one of the ponies does their own activity. And throughout this whole time, Scootaloo learns a dance. And then after they sing the song, they then just go to the festival. It's kind of implied that they spent hours, days, I don't know. It took place over a song, so telling time is hard to tell. I do think that this could have made for a 10-minute or even 20-minute episode. There is potential in the story for that, but it's just 5 minutes, so there's really not much to really gain out of this. In the end, this was a quaint short that had the potential to be longer. At number 15, we have Twinkle-Wish Adventure. So a sacred item gets stolen by a dragon, so the girls have to go on a quest to get it back. So this special is the beginning of Generation 3.5, the in-between of 3 and 4. And with this, we get an updated art style to what we had before. So now the ponies have more distinct looks in their hair, and they have larger heads. So the special begins with the girls preparing for the Winter Wishes Festival, which I think is kind of like a Christmas thing. I don't really know. And they prepare by having an ornament contest. And the winner of the ornament contest gets to present the wishing star for the festival. And the wishing star is this like sentient star that grants wishes. That's creepy looking. I don't know, that's just their lore, I guess. So the girls group up for the contest, but forget Cheerilee. And while they're building their items, they suddenly remember Cheerilee and they decide to help her out. And because of that, Cheerilee wins. And Scootaloo is pretty salty because she really wanted to win. And the winner of the contest has to take care of the box that holds the star. And they're not allowed to open the star because the star is so important to the festival. Which, why would you give the star to the winner? If it's so important, why? Like, if Scootaloo won, how can you trust them not to open the box? Which is exactly what happens. Immediately, Scootaloo opens it because she's curious, and the wishing star wakes up early, and it looks like this horrifying thing. But the star gets kidnapped by a random dragon that flies by, and Pinkie Pie shows just how great she is by being the first one to step up and take charge. So the girls go on a quest to go get the star back, except for Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle, who stay behind and act like nothing happened. And this is Pinkie Pie's plan to make sure that Scootaloo didn't feel left out, which Generation 3 Pinkie Pie is the GOAT. And Generation Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo are just funny. They have random funny lines.
Want a cookie?
Oh, no, thank you. I'm watching my figure.
Watching it do what?
So the mayor who presented the gift constantly checks in every 5 minutes. It's like, oh, how's the wishing star doing? Again, what's the point of giving the wishing star if you're constantly gonna check in every 5 minutes? So the girls go on the quest to the dragon to get the wishing star back, kind of like the Dragon Shy episode. And it turns out that the dragon is just a loner who wanted some company. And she stole the wishing star thinking that that's how she's gonna get company. And the way she's treating the star is kind of like the movie Misery, where she's keeping it captive, she won't let it leave, and she's really possessive. But it also turns out that the dragon can control the weather. Another random bit of lore that it's never gonna show up again. So the girls are unable to convince the dragon to relinquish ownership of the star, so they return home empty-handed, essentially leaving the sentient star enslaved and unhappy. So they apologize to the town, they tell them the truth about what happened, and then the dragon has a sudden change of heart off-screen. She returns the star, the festival happens, they make their wish, and there's this whole theme about being content with wishes that happen in different ways from a certain point of view. It's a whole thing. But in the end, this was a decent but odd start to this half generation. At number 14, we have Greetings from Unicornia. So Remodash takes a tour of Unicornia. So this short begins with Ponyville getting a letter from Rainbow Dash through the rainbow. I guess it's called Rainbow Mail. And the letter from Dash is just Rainbow explaining, oh, here's what's been happening. Like, Rarity is showing off the castle to me. They get to see a ballroom, and they play around in this ballroom, and they have like an open window, and they almost die by jumping out the window. And then they shrug it off like nothing happened. Dash, you know, she wishes that her friends could be there to see everything. And then the ponies, they sing a song about wishing they were there. And then Rainbow Dash returns home and she brings a rainbow with her. And that's it. In the end, this was just a tour guide with a fun song. At number 13, we have Meet the Ponies. So this is 7 different shorts that showcase the personalities of the ponies and the overall friendship. And this is part of the new Core 7 rebrand. Now I know that I'm technically cheating here by putting 7 shorts into one part, but to be honest, I don't have any preference between all these shorts, so they were released as one thing, and I'm gonna label them as one thing, but I'm gonna go through all of them individually in no particular order. So first up, we have Pinkie Pie Party. So Pinkie Pie dreams about messing up her party preparations as she wants to make the best one. And she gets worried about preparing for her party. She doesn't want to mess it up. So her friends, they show up to help and they prepare for the party. And they like the idea so much that they called it the Party. And then they end with them partying. Then we have Rainbow Dash Hat Fashion Party. So Rainbow is trying to figure out a dress-up party. And the Rainbow Dash of this rebrand always dresses in style. After accidentally making a new hat, the others love the idea of making a new hat, so Rainbow decides, hey, let's have like a hat design party, and we'll do like a fashion show, and there'll be these like grand prize. So the fashion show happens, each hat that the ponies make have this like weird gimmick. And apparently Pinkie Pie was supposed to judge the whole thing and she completely forgot about it, so Ramadasht steps in and is like, "Ah, you know what? You're all winners." Which is, you know, always the lame conclusion. Then we have Pajama Cheerily Party. So Cheerily hosts a slumber party. So the ponies, they do a bunch of fun activities for the slumber party, and after telling a scary story, they get spooked by a noise, and the noise was a mouse. Then they go to bed, but they get spooked by the dark, so they end up just staying up all night and having more fun. Then we have Scootaloo Outdoor Play Party. So Scootaloo notices that everybody's having parties, so she decides that she wants to host one of her own. So she asks Pinkie Pie for some advice. And so Pinkie Pie takes a squink and comes up with a sport competition party. So they do the party, and everyone wins a different event. And Scootaloo didn't really think this through because all of them win a different event and they all tie, and there's no tiebreaker. And so all the ponies decide, you know what, Scootaloo's the best. Why don't we just give her the trophy? And that's what they do. I kind of be insulted. I set up this whole thing for them. Why are you giving it back to me? Then we have Star Song Dance and Sing Party. So Star Song has a karaoke party, and the songs used in this short are just reused songs from previous specials. So Sweetie Belle feels insecure about singing in public, and so that's when Cheerily tells her about the story of how Star Song first started performing at a party, because she used to be shy, and then now she's not. After hearing the story, Sweetie Belle's more comfortable, and then they do the karaoke. Then we have Tula Rula Mixed Up Painting Party. So Tula Rula hosts a plate painting party. After, you know, they paint the different plates, they leave it out to dry, but the wind blows the plates all over the place and they get mixed up. So Tula Rula tries to rearrange them, but she gets like the names mixed up with like the different plates. And while Tula Rula like leaves the room to go get cake, the other ponies, they just fix the whole thing without Tula Rula knowing and looking. And then that's the end of the shorts. And lastly, we have Sweetie Belle New Cake Party. So the girls are excited for Sweetie's party where she unveils a new cake. And while they wait and think about what types of cake they would like to make, like a carrot cake or some other cake, they come up with these designs. So Sweetie Belle like struggles to come up with a new cake idea. So her friends, you know, they decide, oh, we're gonna help you by force. And they don't seem to know how to make cake or how baking works, so they just kind of just throw everything in the bowl. They're not following any directions, they're not really communicating with each other. And you know, it turns out as expected, the new cake is just terrible. So then, you know, they decide, okay, we're gonna make a new cake, but we're gonna like work together and follow directions. And after that happens, it's like, oh yeah, the new cake is good. Then they just take a nap and postpone Sweetie Belle's party, and that's it. In the end, this was a solid introduction to the Core 7 that didn't really get to do a whole lot. At number 12, we have Two for the Sky. So the Ponyville gang reads a story about a couple of Earth ponies who want to fly. Here we establish that our pony gang, you know, have a weekly story club where they go to the library and the librarian reads them the story. And the selection process is a little weird. First, you know, they sing a little jingle, then some weird thing happens to this pony's key mark and magic that tells them what story to read. I don't know. But the story they read is about two Earth ponies who want to become Pegasi. They want to sprout wings and fly. So in their free time, you know, they make a bunch of contraptions to try and fly. Kind of like the Wright brothers, you know, learning how to make an airplane. They go to sleep, then they wake up the next day and they find out they have butterfly wings. And then they fly around, they sing a song, and you know, it kind of looks like they're having trouble flying around easily. And then they're like, oh, it's maybe too much for us. And then they wake up and, you know, it's like, oh, it's just a dream. They're like, oh, we're just better to be ourselves, we don't need to fly. I feel it's very conflicting morals because the way the story is presented doesn't really feel like it's like trying to be, it's better to be yourself. It kind of starts out as like, oh, dreams do come true. And then it's like, oh, be careful what you wish for. And then finally it's like, oh, it's better to be yourself. It's a simple story that's pretty nice. So in the end, this was a nice story with some confused ideals. At number 11, we have Come Back Lily Lightly. So Lily Lightly feels insecure about her glowing horn, so she runs away. So the unicorns, they prepare for a party where they hang up a bunch of Christmas lights, and they decide to honor Lily by making her a princess of lights, because apparently she does a good job at setting up lights. This apparently makes Lily feel uncomfortable as her horn lights up due to positive emotions, and she's pretty insecure about her horn lighting up because she's the only unicorn who has that thing happen. While all this stuff is going on, we have balloon antics with Minty and Pinkie Pie. They're like the best of friends in this generation. They're like the best comedic duo, where you have Pinkie Pie being the straight man and Minty being Minty. So Rarity has a song about giggling, and that makes everybody giggle as well as Lily. And then everybody notices that Lily's horn glows, and so Lily feels insecure, so she just runs away into the woods. And I love how everybody immediately figures out what's going on. It's like, oh, like Lily must be feeling insecure about all this stuff. Oh, we should like try to be careful to like make her feel comfortable, which is pretty good on them. So in the woods, Lily meets with this nightmare firefly. Like, look at this thing, it's horrifying. And this firefly is voiced by G3 writer Gian Romano. And they have a song about like letting their light shine and shining on. Essentially like it not being uncomfortable yourself. And so the girls, they find Lily with the help of Minty and Pinkie. They join up together. Then they tell Lily that everyone's unique, they have their own special quirks. So they return back to Unicornia, where the unicorns there, they greet Lily by having Christmas lights on their horns, being like, oh hey, we like your light, which could be seen as insensitive to some degree. This whole story is essentially Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer without all the bullying and without the exploitation. Because in that story, Rudolph is only accepted once Rudolph becomes useful to the gang. So yeah, the special ends with this very demonic ending of Firefly and her very weird voice.
Shine on, Lily Lightly, shine on.
In the end, this is just a good lesson about accepting yourself. At number 10, we have the Runaway Rainbow. So Rarity must return to Unicornia for the rainbow celebration before time runs out. So it's the time of a rainbow celebration where the first rainbow of the season is supposed to happen, and Rainbow Dash is really excited, you know, with her classic line of rainbows, darlings, rainbows.
Rainbows, darlings, rainbows.
And then over at the Land of Unicorns, it turns out that little Rarity is chosen to be the festival princess, which is a very important position for the production of rainbows, involving a very convoluted ritual about shooting stars and specifically colored ponies doing specific actions at specific times. So Sherry Lee, who used to be a unicorn before the rebrand, tries to teach her what needs to be done, but Rarity kind of just skirts her responsibilities because she wants to have fun and play around. Essentially, she has ADHD, but the unicorns of this generation don't have magic from their horns. Instead, they need to use a magic wand. But meanwhile, Rainbow Dash explains where rainbows come from, which, you know, as like a brony, wink wink, you know, it's kind of funny watching this with the context of fan fiction and music.
You know so much about rainbows.
Of course I do, darlings. If I don't know all about rainbows, who would?
Do you know how they're made?
Well, darlings, there are some things we're not supposed to know.
But Rarity plays around with the magic wand and gets teleported. So Cheerilee and the others go on a quest to find Rarity in time for the festival. And because like if they don't make it for the ritual in time, there will be no rainbow. So Rarity makes it to Ponyville, and everybody's just staring at this random child eating cake like it's the most shocking thing happen. So Rarity, makes a remark. It's like, oh, I make the rainbows. And everybody immediately believes that. Like, oh, she makes the rainbows? Where in previous specials, they've always been skeptical on, like, new things like that. But now here, they're like, oh, they must be true. Then Rarity, just messes around town, causing chaos. And she doesn't like to take responsibility for the chaos that happens, for the collateral damage, which is part of her character arc of accepting responsibility, because she's always blaming other things for the chaos. So the Ponyville gang go with Rarity to find Unicornia, and like on their journey home, antics ensues. Rarity almost dies and has to be rescued, and again, she's not owning up to her mistakes. And so they camp for the night, and it turns out that the two pony groups are like literally camping around the corner from each other. And during this time, Rarity has a duet with Cheerilee in what is probably the best song from this generation.
I could boo-hoo, so sad, so blue, because we two are far apart.
And then after the song, Rarity finally realizes that she needs to take responsibility. So they meet with the other ponies, they go back to Unicornia, and apparently the outcome of the ritual not happening in time is that the color starts to disappear from the land. So Remadash loses some rainbow colors. So they perform the ritual anyway, and then the color returns, and then everybody celebrates. And in the end, the Rainbow Factory got their sacrifice. At number 9, we have Pinkie Pie's Ferris Wheel Adventure. So Pinkie struggles to make ends meet, so she has to take multiple jobs at amusement park. I'm just kidding. Pinkie Pie just really wants to show her friends a good time, so she sets up an amusement park for them where she pretends to be all the different employees. And she does this to show off her new Ferris wheel. But it turns out that like the Ferris wheel doesn't have enough seats for everyone, so somebody has to wait. And this could be a whole conflict, but no, immediately Sweetie Belle's like, oh, I'll wait for the next one. And it's a very short and simple conflict, which, it's 5 minutes long, so they can't really do a whole lot. In the end, this was just a cute short with Pinkie Pie being best pony. At number 8, we have Positively Pink. So Ponyville tries to set up a surprise birthday party for Pinkie Pie. So this short begins with Minty reading the birthday calendar, and she somehow thinks that today is Pinkie Pie's birthday. And so she tells everyone, and so everybody's plan for this celebration is to decorate everything pink. And of course, Pinkie Pie walks into the room, and everybody, has to keep everything a secret. And so Pinkie's confused, why is everybody acting weird? So they have to have puzzlement distract Pinkie Pie the whole day until everything is ready. But eventually, Pinkie Pie sees all the decorations that were set up. And the way that she looks, everything is just really cute to see. The look that she gives is the look of someone who's very content with their life looking at something beautiful. And it turns out, it's actually not her birthday, it's actually the next day. So there's a party of one situation. But it's a lot of fun, they celebrate anyway, and it's pretty cute and wholesome. In the end, this was just a cute short to celebrate Best Pony Pinkie Pie. At number 7, we have Pinkie Pie and the Ladybug Jamboree. So Pinkie Pie forms a band at the last second. So this short is about a music show competition, and everybody in what is supposed to be a band that's supposed to play together is just playing random instruments, and apparently this band hasn't played together or even rehearsed. They don't know what they're supposed to do, so Pinkie Pie has to take a squink, which taking a squink in the context of this generation is just her thinking really hard. And the solution that Pinkie has is to play the instruments together, which I don't know how nobody thought of that before. So they named their band after a ladybug that was just flying around, so the Ladybug Jamboree. And then they, at the very last second, also just made these ladybug costumes. And I guess they also learned to play music together and learned a song about ladybugs. This is just all pure luck that this happened in the span of 5 minutes. But we have a great and fun song. So, in the end, Best Pony Piggy Pie came in clutch. At number 6, we have Dancing in the Clouds. So Twinkle Twirl can't figure out a new dance for some dance showcase that she's hosting, so her friend Sky Wishes makes a wish to learn a new dance number. So apparently the lore in this generation is you make a wish on a kite, and then if you catch the kites, the wish comes true. I don't know, but while chasing the kite, the two girls, they get distracted by a roller coaster that has a lot of OSHA violations. So Twinkle Twirl hosts a dance rehearsal, and the scene goes very long. And as expected, none of the other ponies are perfect or dancing at first. And this scene has a lot of very wonky animation. So Sky Wishes decides to make another wish to help everyone out. When she makes a wish, a Pegasus shows up and gives Sky Wishes a tour of the sky with butterflies, because apparently Pegasi help with granting wishes. And so Sky Wishes is warned not to tell anyone else about the Pegasi, because if she does, then I guess the wishes won't come true. And then immediately Sky Wishes, makes another wish for the butterflies to show up and assist everyone with this new dance. Nobody questions anything about these random butterflies, they just go along with it. So they win an award for the dance, and while all this stuff is happening, the Pegasus just watches everything through this giant window in clear view of everyone. So in the end, a new dance was learned and a secret friendship was formed. At number 5, we have the Princess Promenade. So Wisteria accidentally becomes a princess and struggles with the responsibility of nobility. So what this special does is introduce breezies to the My Little Pony world. So they're these tiny little ponies with butterfly wings, and apparently they help to make flowers grow. And so all the breezies and all the ponies, they're preparing for a spring promenade, and apparently the breezies are, a normal thing for the ponies to see, but Pegasi are not. I don't know. So the breezies show up in Ponyville, and then they have this gardening montage, and one of the breezies, is very much allergic and is constantly sneezing at every time she smells a flower. She does it to herself. She knows she's allergic, but she just can't help it. She's a drug addict. And speaking of drugs, Wisteria finds a big weed in the garden, which has, this fantastic scene.
It's an ugly thing! A horrible, disgraceful, horrible, ugly thing! I can't even say it!
And so her and Pinky fall down this giant hole where they find that there's these huge caves and caverns underneath Ponyville. Could you imagine the sinkholes? And inside the cave, they find a sleeping Spike the Dragon, whose full name in this generation is Master Kenbroth Gilspot and Heathspike. So the ponies, they take him to the spa because he stinks, and throughout this whole time there's just a lot of on-the-nose foreshadowing about who Spike is and what the plot of this story is. And so they introduce Spike to the other ponies, and that's where he announces that Wisteria is the new princess of Ponyville. And she's the princess because she touched the magic flower that Spike was holding first. And of course, after Wisteria is named princess, everyone starts acting weird to her because she's royalty. And so Pinkie Pie, she takes another squink and she decides, what? Forget the spring promenade. Let's make this thing the princess promenade because we have a new princess. Then Wisteria has a princess training montage throughout this experience, she finds out that she isn't really a fan of royal etiquette and classism. She just wants to play in the dirt, to garden, to smell flowers, to like help her friends, but Spike is like, no, you can't do that. So this is kind of like the princess problem episode from Ponytails. So Wisteria decides to denounce the throne, and she does it by making everyone in Ponyville a princess, and everybody gets a new gown when they become a princess, except for Minty, who just gets a towel. And throughout the special, there's been lots of themes of compromise. For instance, we have like a group of breezies who can't decide on anything, so they compromise to do things together. Then you have the floats, where everybody's doing a different floats, and then they compromise to do multiple floats together. And then the final solution, of course, is, I don't want to be a princess, so let's make everyone a princess. So I don't know how the logistics of that works when doing politics. At least it's a happy ending. And in the end, Emma Larson got jealous at how casual they handed out princess-ships. At number 4, we have a charming birthday. So the ponies try to surprise Kimono for her birthday, so they decide to make charm bracelets. So this is the very first special for this 3rd generation. And the special is, it's pretty much a toy ad that shows off the different ponies and their personalities, kind of like a toy magazine catalog where it's like, here's this pony, here's their 3 character traits. For instance, Minty, she likes green, Rainbow Dash likes dressing up with rainbow-themed attire, and apparently Pinkie Pie is a mansplainer.
Pinkie Pie knows a lot about a lot of things. Like on her birthday, we all got a lesson in how to properly blow up and tie off a balloon. A good tip. But since we already knew how, we pretended we didn't. After all, it was her birthday.
I've been thinking. 8 charm bracelets are, well, it's just a lot of charm bracelets.
One of the things that I noticed is that these early specials have muted colored palettes, where later ones were much more brighter pastel-like. But another thing I noticed is that this generation has a lot of jarring animation as well. There's so many moments where characters will smile and just look utterly creepy, especially when they look at the camera. There's something about the design of the animation for this that just makes you feel unsettled. So the pony Kimono has never been successfully surprised for a birthday. And Kimono is described as the wisest pony that lives in the outskirts of Ponyville. So all the ponies, they decide to make charm bracelets for the birthday, but then they debate about the concept. It's like, oh, why have 2 charm bracelets when you could have 200? And they can't really figure out what to do themselves, so they decide, why don't we go ask Kimono for advice, because she's the wisest one. And the solution is just to make 1 bracelet, but everyone making different charms. And once everybody comes to that realization, they celebrate the solution as if a war had ended with this extended sequence of them just dancing and being happy. But apparently nobody understood the assignment, because everybody made these excessively huge sized charms that they're never gonna wear on a bracelet. And then also, while this happens, Pinkie Pie decides to try space jumping. But, they figure it all by the end by reducing the size and just making a small one. Then they decide to risk the birthday cake by pushing it that has to go down some stairs. Ends up being perfect, but that could have been a disaster. And Kimono gets surprised for the first time in her life. Which, Kimono is a pretty cool character, but it's a shame that she never shows up again ever after this. In the end, this was a solid commercial for the Pony Toy catalog. At number 3, we have the world's biggest tea party. So the ponies decide to throw the world's biggest tea party. Alright, so you might be confused as to why this one is rated so high, but it's honestly a guilty pleasure of mine. What this thing is that it's a live theatrical production by a company called V, who did a lot of these productions in the 2000s. And it's, to me, the most fascinating thing to exist for G3, or ponies in general. Obviously, when you try to translate 2D cartoon designs into 3D, live action, you get nightmare fuel. The costumes, they look pretty weird, but honestly, this also has a lot of very impressive production work. The voice actors from the specials, they recorded their lines for this play. The eyes in the costumes, they can blink. There's puppetry that's done on the head. They have lip sync. The breezies, they're like tiny puppets, and that's fun. And yeah, while the costume looks really weird, if you look at it from the profile, it actually looks like the toy and it looks pretty decent. It's only when they're looking straight out at the audience, which is most of the time, that it looks really unsettling. And the music used for this musical is mostly reused songs, song covers of classic songs, and of course original music. And of course, me being someone who has a background in theater, of course I'm going to enjoy the live stage production. So this production begins with the introduction to the characters as they proclaim a good morning. They sing, they say, "This is this pony, this is them," and it's all fun. The breezies, they get a cameo. There's also these weird ladybugs and Spike. It's all odd. But all the ponies, in this good morning, they want to do a bunch of different activities like, oh, I want to bake a cake, I want to eat cookies, I want to drink tea. So Pinkie Pie suggests that they do it all at once in one day, but she doesn't really know how to do it practically in one day. And honestly, it's not that hard because all the suggestions are like things that only take 2 minutes to like an hour, so they could do it, honestly. So Pinkie Pie, she has to think hard, she has to take a squink, and she takes a squink with the audience's participation.
Thanks to our new friends, we squinked big and we're going to have the world's biggest tea party!
So the solution that she comes up with is to host the world's biggest tea party. So they divide all the tasks up between the ponies. So Minty's in charge of the invitation and Pinkie Pie's in charge of making the tea. The story itself is not very complicated. It's really worth 20 minutes of a story, but because this is like a live theatrical production about an hour long, there's a lot of filler moments in between each scene. And there's a fun song and dance number where they're trying out different outfits. And then, Spike comes out trying to be hip for the kids, which was honestly very cringe. But that sequence led to the Disco Dash song number, which is fun. So they go to the party, and there they realize that, oh no, Pinkie forgot the tea. So she laments using the cover of my favorite G3 song.
I'm so afraid to admit the mistake that I made. I forgot and didn't come through. It's alright, we still love you. You do?
And through the magic of audience participation, a giant teapot shows up and the tea party happens. I mean, all of this is really weird, but honestly, I had a lot of fun with this. The theater person in me just loved looking at that production side. I would honestly love it if they did this again with the same production. And theater is known to redo shows, so I would love it to see this again. I wish I could have seen it live. But in the end, this was a fascinating piece of pony media. At number 2, we have Friends Are Never Far Away. So the Pegasi and the Earth Ponies want to meet, but aren't sure if it will work. So here we see that Sky Wishes still has a good friendship with Starcatcher, the Pegasus, and she wishes that the other ponies, they could be friends and have fun. But it turns out that the Pegasi, they're all shy. They're essentially introverts. They don't like to meet new people and do new things. So Sky Wishes decides to host a party at Ponyville and have the two groups meet together. But the Earth Ponies, they're skeptical about the existence of Pegasi. But, they decide, it doesn't really matter they exist because we love to party and have fun. So Twinkle Twirl decides to choreograph a new dance, and this is something that we'll see them constantly practice in the background of many scenes. And Pinkie Pie is in charge of karaoke, which, again, we see her try to practice making a new song but the Pegasi aren't really fully on board for social interacting, and they're also skeptical about the existence of wingless ponies. And the most stubborn of the Pegasi is Thistlewhistle. So none of the Pegasi show up because they're all scared, and Ponyville just ends up going to Butterfly Island and bringing the party with them in their hot air balloons, including this giant ice cream that's very unsanitary. So a balloon accident causes the Pegasi to finally get involved and meet the Earth Ponies, and then, you know, they have their song, which is actually the first song of this generation, and then they party. And in the end, some introverts got adopted by extroverts. And at number 1, we have A Very Minty Christmas. So Minty breaks an important Christmas decoration and goes on an adventure to save the holiday. So a thing of note is that this is the first Christmas special that My Little Pony has ever done. And here we see a new animated look with updated designs that more or less resemble what happens for the rest of this generation. It still looks creepy, but you know, they're getting there. And this special has a lot of ADHD ponies who get distracted easily right after doing stuff. Minty apparently has some unqualified OCD. When things are absolutely perfect, she's like, maybe it's not perfect, and has to fix it. So an event is held by the ponies to put the special candy cane on the tree, and the candy cane is pretty much there to light up the sky so that Santa can come and give them presents. So we continue on with the continuity with Pegasi putting up the decoration, so we see that they're still friends now. And of course, Minty immediately breaks the decoration. A thing about Minty is that she's kind of the derpy Hobbes of Generation 3, in that she's a fan favorite, she kind of represents the fandom of G3, and she's kind of like derpy Hobbes, both voiced by Tabitha St. Germain, and both being a little clumsy. So Minty decides to try and save Christmas after breaking the ornament by pretending to be Santa Claus and giving presents. And here is where we learn that Minty actually really loves socks. She loves socks so much that we have a whole song and dance number about how much she loves socks. So the story of this special is essentially about how Minty invented the idea of stockings on the fireplace. So Minty does a lot of home invasion, leaving behind socks for the other ponies, and then we end up having the best scene probably in this whole generation.
What are you doing here? With one of your socks on your head?
I was trying to be Santa.
Why? What's wrong with the real Santa?
Broken?
You broke Santa?
I'm really, really, really sorry.
Minty? What's your sock doing on my mantle?
So Minty ends up deciding to travel to the North Pole and explain the situation to Santa so that Santa can come deliver presents. And while she tries to do that, she breaks the tree. And so that leads the town ponies to try and follow Minty because Minty is Minty and Minty cannot be trusted by herself. And this leads to misadventure with Minty and the hot air balloons. And here we also see that Thistlewhistle has a fear of clouds, which is a very odd fear to give a Pegasi. So they make it to the North Pole, and of course Santa isn't there. But he leaves behind a note, which leads to another fun scene.
It's a note.
It's a note.
It's a note, darling.
Ooh, yep. The big kahuna. That's an important note.
So Minty apologizes to everyone about ruining Christmas, but everyone forgives Minty and they're like, oh, we're all friends, we're glad you're safe. And then of course the magic of friendship does a thing and Christmas is saved. So the tree's put back, the lights are back, they have presents, and Santa leaves another note saying that he stole the patent for Minty's stocking. And then the episode ends with a lot of reused animation for some reason. This is a really fun special, and it's the one that a lot of bronies experience first whenever they go to Generation 3. So in the end, Minty showed us the true meaning of Christmas was friendship all along. Well, that was my ranking for this generation of episodes. Please let me know what you think of these episodes, and also make sure to let me know if I should continue this ranking review onto Generation 4. And if you want to check out my initial reactions until then, please click the link in the description below. Also, please be sure to check out the Binging Barbie podcast. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.